And welcome to another edition of Mailbag. And like in the previous set of mailbags, I'm recording a single header for many answers that you guys have left on the channel, and there is a lot to go through this evening. So before we get going, remember these are mailbag questions and comments that you guys leave on the channel that are well worth actually sharing with the wider community. But before we start, we always go through parish notices, which are, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, why not? Hit the subscribe icon. If you want to be notified about when videos hit the channel about things like this thing that's just off shop, which is the IDA 2400, that's the bell icon. If you like the contents of the video you're just about to watch, you know what, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the video on the YouTube algorithm. Also, leave comments down below. I do read them, I respond to them, and that's the reason why we're having this mailbag conversation now. And finally, for less than the price of a cup of coffee, consider supporting the channel by becoming a member of the TMTG community. The address is down below, as are the Instagram and Facebook tags where the normal channel notices are posted. But now back to this particular mailbag. Okay, this one's from Sean Curran in response to what music cartridge is available for the Yamaha CX5M video I did in January 2021. Now this was an interesting video because I went through all the cartridges that I've got for this particular machine. There are a lot more cartridges out there, especially for games from Konami. But this was really about sort of the music cartridges that I had for the CX5M that I've collected over the couple of years. I've had the CX5M, but I've not really showcased. So Sean writes, "Cool series, John. It is be very interesting to see what state of art was back in 1983 and 1987, which is kind of when the CX5M hit the streets. Do you know what? It is interesting to see where the MSX was compared with other 8-bit machines at the time, sort of Commodore 64, Sinclair Spectrum, BBC Micro, Tandy, etc. And this machine has a lot of support for music. That was kind of the thing that was, I don't think, really came to the fore with the Yamaha music computer. In fact, it didn't come to the fore with a number of the MSX range computers because they all operated on the same basic structure, if you like. It was all MS Basic. Because they all operated on the same MS Basic and the structure of the computer and the components was very similar, you could pretty much run these music programs on every single one of them without actually having to do any hardware modifications. Now, if you wanted to do the some of the synth work, then you would have to have a MIDI keyboard, and there were controllers around for the other machines at this point in time. So it was really interesting to see that. And maybe on the next video I'll make a point of many of the cartridges, e.g. the DX7 editor, that do not need a CX5M to operate, just an MSX. And I think that was kind of didn't really come through, but it labours on the point I just made. Now, the only difference, really, I'd say, between the CX5M and a lot of the other MSX machines is the CX5X has a dedicated MIDI interface built into it. But, you know, there were interfaces for the other machines. The other interesting fact is, in Europe, we had MSX machines from Sony, Panasonic, Sanyo, etc. They were sold in shops here. I can remember seeing, there was a shop at the top of my road that sold these MSX machines, and I didn't really, because bearing in mind, in 1983 I was 12. But bearing in mind, at this point in time, I didn't really understand what an MSX machine was all about. And I had a Spectrum and a Commodore. But it seems that we didn't really have the CX5M. It was sold here, but it seems to be the only machine that was actively sold in the States. The US didn't seem to get the whole MSX thing. I suppose because there were a lot of US manufacturers in the market and there was a barrier to entry. But it does account for the fact that there are 240 volt model examples, should I say, and 100 volt model examples, but very few 120 volt examples. Okay, next one comes from Matthew North, and he says, interesting to see some of those cartridges, especially the 4-track MIDI sequencer. Now this is in response to the music cartridges available for the Yamaha CX5M video I did in January 2021. And sorry, I'm just being told that there's a cup of tea before me in the kitchen. I'll go and get that in a sec. Anyway, Matthew carries on. I recently acquired a CX5M and upgraded and have an upgrade chip for the synth part through, though I haven't soldered it in yet, but should work like your upgrade pack. My idea is to make music with it, and when done, to do the same with my BBC Micro. I do like the CX5, very solid computer. I regretted selling my Mark II like you have. And I have to be honest, I've got a Mark 1 and a Mark II. My Mark 1 is currently up for sale. So if you go and look on eBay, you can see my Mark 1 up for sale there. And by the way, guys, I'm not giving it away, so I can't afford to now. But the Mark II I find is a very functional machine. Anyway, it does. The CX5M, from what I can see, the CX5M seems to be really well supported by Yamaha. That's one of the key things I would say about this. There is a lot of music-orientated programs that Yamaha produce for this particular machine: sequencers, editors, synths. Plus, of course, you can run all the standard MSX software that was produced by other manufacturers, and there's a lot of games from Konami. So there was a lot of software from this platform. I don't think there was a lot of software in the UK for it per se. But definitely, if you now start to look at the stuff that is coming from, there's still people producing stuff in Japan for the MSX. So, there is some longevity there. But I do think Yamaha really, really did support the platform really well. So they built it as a music computer and they sold music software for it. And there were a number of other manufacturers who jumped into the market and did sell stuff for the MSX. I kind of think the problem of selling in England was the main market for this machine was the Far East. Anyway, be interested to see how your BBC MSX experiment turns out. I have to admit, I haven't used a BBC machine since I left school, and that was a long, long time ago.